it had always possibly been danced around the subject that was the potential outcome, but at that point, there's no real like avoiding it. That's the place you're in.
So that was January 2024, 4th of January 2024. And that was like the first time like it was like confirmed.
Yeah, I actually shared the news quite quickly with everyone because I just wanted it over and done with.
How come you did that? Because so many people would either keep it as a secret or take a long time to tell people. Like for you, it seemed like straight away you
I think
were
I
ready
told
to share.
everyone. I told most people within 24 hours. I think because I just wanted it over and done with. I don't want to say, oh, cancer's worst case scenario, because it is in many respects, but also that I don't know that catastrophizing things is helpful, or I don't want that to be what people think of.
Hi everyone, welcome to this episode of Between the Lines. Sometimes a single sentence can change a person's life. Sometimes the change can happen so quickly, not even aware that it's happening. In today's episode, Zoe will tell us a story that will undoubtedly move us, not just because of the diagnosis, but also because of the shock and the speed and the courage that she needed to find to move forward at the age of 27. Zoe, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
I need to treat you with extra kindness than usual. A, because you're dating my cousin and he wouldn't forgive me. And you're coming this Shabbos for lunch. So that means that I can't run away.
But you do have 24 hours to rescind the invite, so
that's true.
It works both ways.
But no, it's not easy. And yeah, it means a lot that you're here to share your story.
Of course.
Can you maybe like paint a picture of life, which was what 2020, before you knew anything? What were you doing? What life was like?
I think it was probably the stereotypical what you'd hope for from your mid to late 20s. I had met Stephen. My friends were getting married. I was probably the last big milestone just before symptoms started was my best friend's wedding. I was maid of honour on the Sunday, and probably by the Tuesday I noticed my first symptom. Working as a teacher, so kind of chipping away at my career progression and enjoying spending time with family, friends, holidays, everything you'd kind of expect and hope for.
Mm-hmm. And then you mentioned like the symptom. What was the first symptom?
I had quite a lot of discomfort around when I was eating. So and like stabbing pains in my stomach. I had quite a persistent need to go to the loo, and just quite bloated in a way that felt abnormal, or not how I perhaps was used to feeling after eating.
And then, and what happened then? You just, at some point you went to the doctor to check it out, or? Yeah,
I called NHS 111 and I was fully expecting them to say, you're absolutely fine, no need to worry. I think at that point the symptoms have been going on about a month. And in particular, I think the fact that I do teach means I was noticing that I was having to duck out of lessons to go to the bathroom in a way that I'd never previously had to do. So that for me was quite a tangible difference in what was going on for me. I thought they'd tell me nothing was wrong, and I went through the questionnaire online or over the phone, and they were like, you need to come in within 6 hours.
Oh, really?
And I was like, well, it'd be really good if I can come in like 8, because that's when I'm done teaching. And they were like, no, it needs to be 6. So I went in.
Were you at that point, because they said that, did that set off any alarm bells, or you just thought that's just protocol?
It did. I thought they were going to tell me I needed my appendix out. Was kind of my concern. So I went to urgent care near where I work, and they checked me over, and they said, you're not going to drop dead today, go home, you're all right, speak to the doctor, get some blood tests, get an ultrasound, and we'll go from there really. So that was on the Tuesday, and then I got the blood test on the Friday, and then by the following Tuesday, the blood test results had come back. One was quite high, so I had an ultrasound that day, and then by the Friday I was in an MRI machine. At that point they said, you've got like an ovarian cyst. We knew that it was quite big. I think it was the size of a grapefruit, but for a long time it was, these are all the things it could be. We can't rule out cancer, but these are all the things it could be. So we just need to kind of, 99% of the time it's fine, 99% of the time it's this, 70% of the time it's this. We just kind of, need to rule things out really. I do want to say that like the NHS could not have been better to me. They saw me quickly. They acted on things. Like throughout that whole process, I cannot fault them. And
amazing.
I know that sometimes people aren't able to say that, but I do. If this is all about like saying things can be okay, like they were really good.
Okay, so they stepped up, they're checking them, doing the scans, but at this point in time, you're just still thinking that, we're just ruling everything out, just everything's going to be fine. Yeah,
I think anything, I've got an amazing support network. I'm very, very close to my friends, possibly to an extent that some people are like, you really telling your friends that? But for me, it was daunting because none of my friends had, like, I didn't really have any reference points. Even if it was an ovarian cyst, like I hadn't known anyone that had that. The pragmatic side of it was around this time. So like November, work's busy, like there's a lot going on. It almost, at that point, it was just like frustrating. Like
it's very
it's just more just like, I'm waiting for another phone call. I'm waiting, like, as well as anyone, like I live a busy life. So to all of a sudden have like the possibility of an appointment or a phone call or waiting for someone else doesn't sit overly comfortably with me, but.
Yeah, well, at that point it's just sort of, it's an annoyance probably.
Yeah, and when they called and they said, okay, so the blood test results came back slightly high, so they said, we're going to move you from the 2-week scan, from the 8-week scan wait list to the 2-week scan wait list. And then they called me half an hour later saying, we've got a scan this afternoon. In some respects, the speed that everything was happening made it easier because there wasn't really time to sit and think. It was all just very like transactional.
Just doing it. And then, okay, so then you then had that next scan.
Yeah.
And what did that show?
So I had an MRI, and at that point, my understanding is I had the MRI just so that they were always going to remove that ovarian cyst. They just needed to know what they were dealing with. So I had that MRI, and that, again, they called me up and they said, because surgery was due to be in the early Jan, and they called me up and they said, MRI's come back, like, I can't really remember the wording or the phrasing that they used, but they did say, we've had a look through the MDT and there's just a little bit of solid matter in a small part of it that they're not 100% sure isn't something. Was kind of, again, the way it was phrased. It was like, we just can't yet rule cancer out.
Yeah.
So they changed the plan slightly for surgery in terms of the scope of it, and then they moved it forward. So as opposed to being in early Jan, it was mid-December. Which again, at the time, I was just really grumpy about because it was the first day of my Christmas holidays. So the kids were all like looking forward to the break and excited and this, that and the other. And I was like, no, holidays are cancelled. Like, I can't have my nails done. I can't have a glass of wine. Like, you're all going to go off on your holidays and I'm going to be sat in hospital. So again, at that point, it was just a bit annoying, really.
Yes, yeah. Okay, so then, but you go for it because it's, you have to have it. And what happens next? So I don't have any recollection of this. I don't even know if I was in the room, but apparently the surgeon came in after surgery and said to my parents and Stephen, like, whatever it was he said, apparently my mum turned around and said, wouldn't want to play poker with him. Whether that's the benefit of hindsight, who knows? But I think because partly of it being over Christmas and New Year, surgery was the 16th of December. I got a couple of test results back that were all clear, but then 2nd of Jan they called and they said, can we see you on the 4th of Jan?
like results have come back or whatever. And that was not a nice wait, because at that point you go through all of those uncertainties. I think with friends, and we'd kind of reassured ourselves that I don't really know. We didn't know what to expect, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And at that point you probably do just go into over-analysis of, oh, well, they want to see me in person, or maybe that's just good patient care. They didn't explicitly say, make sure you bring someone with you, but my mum had been at every appointment with me anyway, so maybe they just assumed that she was coming. So
yeah, so there's a lot of
like
trying to
I think, again, like even if they had said, and this is no criticism, if they had said, we've got the results, like we've got an appointment for you on Thursday, make sure you bring a loved one. That's enough of a hint.
Of course, yeah, that would send you.
But then, yeah, so I don't know. So we went on the Thursday, and the surgeon explained, yeah, it had come back as cancerous, which obviously was a shock. I think it had always possibly been danced around the subject that was the potential outcome, but at that point, there's no real like avoiding it. That's the place you're in.
So that was January 2024, 4th of January 2024. And that was like the first time like it was like confirmed.
Yeah.
And until then, you probably just put it out of your mind that it wasn't going to be, or it was going to be.
Yeah, or it was like, I think because there were always so many other things it could be, and I think it probably just got to the point that every single appointment, it was like, oh, well, there are all of these things it could be, and actually we've had to go to worst case scenario. Like, there's all of these things it could be, we've had to go to worst case scenario. So then, I don't know. I don't want to say, oh, cancer's worst case scenario, because it is in many respects, but also that I don't know that catastrophizing things is helpful, or I don't want that to be what people think of. Because definitely for me, like I'm laughing because the first thing I thought of was that you know all of the names of people that have had cancer and have died, or haven't made it, or there isn't a happy ending.
Mm-hmm.
And that was my first.
That would be the
instinctual response. Actually, what was really nice and touching in the aftermath were the amount of people that said, oh, actually, I've had cancer. And one of my colleagues, who really good friend, like, oh, I had it twice when I was younger. Like, I think it would be nice, and I think it's probably naive to hope that actually at least there's slightly more of a balance, that people can think of the people that did have a happy ending or a positive outcome, mm-hmm. as much as the people that didn't.
Yes, yeah. Well, we tend to always focus on just the way the sort of we are psychologically. We'll tend to always latch on to the negative and the fear.
Yeah, I think so.
There could be lots of positive stories. We just don't tend to. They don't tend to sit as much as the doom and the gloom.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think if you ask anyone, like, when you hear the C word, that causes a huge fear.
But I think that's the other thing. So I think the reason I laughed initially is because actually the other thing I did, I came home and I went to Brent Cross and bought a new phone. Because in my mind I was like, if I'm going to be in hospital and if I'm going to have appointments, I'm going to have to, like, I don't know, want to watch Netflix on it, like, I need to work. Like, my phone was kind of probably on its last 6 months. So I don't know if there's many people that have been in Brent Cross 2 hours after having a cancer diagnosis.
What I'm saying. It shows already, like, just the fact that was your mindset. You're already thinking, is that your nature? Like, when things happen, problems happen, or you go straight into like let's solve the problem, let's move on. I don't know that that's necessarily my instinct.
Maybe reflecting on it. That is, I'm quite impatient. So I don't like, and that's probably to my detriment, and has definitely been something that I found harder post-diagnosis. But definitely, like, like, if something needs to be done, I want it done now.
Yes.
And definitely maybe.
So you needed that phone now.
I needed it now. I needed it that instant, because that was something I could do. I couldn't control X, Y, and Z, but I could control going to Brent Cross and buying a phone.
Right.
And making sure that then that was off my to-do list, because it had probably been on there in the back of my mind. And yeah, I think the other thing is like I can completely understand why you say, oh, the C word and everything. But actually, my mum got quite annoyed when one of my friends said, I sent a text to a few people and like I actually shared the news quite quickly with everyone because I just wanted it over and done with.
How come you did that? Because so many people would either keep it as a secret or take their long time to tell people. Like for you, it seemed like straight away you
I think
were
I
ready
told
to share.
everyone. I told most people within 24 hours. I think because I just wanted it over and done with. I didn't want, having told everyone, it then probably took me about 2 weeks to be in a place where I could reply to people.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't want.
Did you want the replies, or was it more just to keep everyone in the loop?
Like the replies were lovely and touching. I found those harder to deal with in terms of like the emotions that come into that, because it's also a shock for other people. A lot of people didn't necessarily know that I'd even had the first surgery because everything had happened quite quickly. It was over Christmas. So it was kind of saying to close, like not my closest friends, but close friends, like, by the way, this has happened and this has happened. Oh, and this has happened.
Yeah.
And that was a shock for them. But I just think it was easier to tell people, get it out there, because then also quite pragmatic things have to happen. So I had to tell work. I actually went up to Manchester the next day, and I knew that I was going to be going over to Sheffield to see my grandma. I didn't want to tell my grandma in person. I wanted her to know beforehand. So I think probably, I don't know, it was something to do. Yeah, it was a very generic, almost like a screenshot of a post. It wasn't individualized messages, but
yes, yeah. But like at that point, had you actually had time to really like, was there a time where it just hit you, or you just the whole time just sort of moving on?
I think, I don't know that it ever does. I think whether it's like it hits you in one way and then it hits you in another way later on, and then it hits you in another way later on. Like I don't know that it's too big of a thing to kind of have it one and done for whatever stage that is. So yeah.
But is it hard to sort of stop thinking like the future and
absolutely,
and what people, all the doom and gloom that people associate with cancer?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's, yeah.
How did you sort of keep yourself going? Or do you just,
I don't know that I did.
To?
Like you're forced to. I went up to Manchester. So the plan had always been, because I wasn't able to see my family over the Christmas holidays because I was recovering from surgery. So the plan was always to go up to the Sheffield, Manchester on the kind of weekend that if I got diagnosed on the Thursday, I was going to go on the Friday and then be there over the weekend. And that was always the plan. And I'm sure to a lot of people, it was like wild that I still did that. I still got on the train by myself. Stephen was already up there and did it. But I think if I'd spent the weekend sat at home, one, that's time to think, and two, that's different, and different is wrong.
Yeah, you needed normality and routine.
That was out of normal. It wasn't normal. The plan was for me to go to Sheffield, therefore I go to Sheffield. And definitely, I think, I don't know, there's no right or wrong way to deal with it. No, however I've dealt with it worked for me, but that doesn't mean it has to or should work for the next person. Like I say, not many people go to Brent Cross 2 minutes after they've been diagnosed and get a phone. Not many people have, and I mean, I feel for the people on the train carriage. Like the oncology nurse called me and I was having the conversation whilst getting on the train at Euston Station, like walking through Euston Station and on the train carriage, like no idea what
there's almost something like very bizarre about it.
Yeah, and like we very much kind of from the beginning, as you say, like you hear the word cancer and yeah, like 99% of the time you cry, but like let's try and find some opportunities to laugh. Like,
is that what you said to yourself?
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
What made you say that? It's almost like...
Because you either laugh or cry, so you might as well laugh. And I don't think that, like, there's enough things that are going to make you cry that you might as well, I don't know,
but it's so hard to laugh when one's thinking about what's going to be and...
Yeah, but I think I couldn't hide from the truth. So why, I think it's a lot to kind of course you have to be mindful of other people. And I know that my support network did an amazing job of seeking support elsewhere. Stephen, my parents, my friends, I can only assume were the shoe to be on the other foot. You would, if my friend was going through that, I would need support. But they sought that in somewhere other than me.
Yes, yeah.
And I think it's a lot, for me to then do that as well. I don't know, again, I was shopping, I was out with a friend shopping central London. I think we were in Uniqlo in Regent Street. And my boiler was kind of a little bit on the blink. And bless her, I'd text my mum and I'd said, I think the boiler, I might need a new boiler. It's kind of the last thing I need right now. And she'd gone into overdrive. She'd sent me 10, 15, 20 messages, ping, 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 of here's a boiler, this is this, this is this, this is this. And I said quite loudly to my friend, I was like, oh, for goodness sake, I've got cancer. Can't my mum sort the boiler? And the poor man behind me in Uniqlo was like, what? What has she just said? And again, I now say that and we laugh. And I announced that I had cancer and someone smiled.
Yes.
And I think that's...
But it's also the shock of people because people don't associate cancer with a 27-year-old.
Yeah. And I think there's definitely this, I don't know, gap. There's probably quite a lot of visibility of kids with cancer and children with cancer, and understandably because it's heartbreaking. And there's probably quite a lot of focus on adults and perhaps older people. And perhaps if you were to ask me where would I have expected a cancer diagnosis to come from, it would have been either my parents or my friend's parents. I think I'm in that middle ground that you don't necessarily anticipate and expect.
Of course, no.
But that's not to say it doesn't happen. It's just, perhaps maybe for whatever reasons it hasn't.
Why is that? Is that because it's more they say they don't probably have full data, but it sounds to be that in sort of more recent times there are more young people, not young, but sort of your age.
Yeah, I think definitely.
Getting it, or just that age group not talk about it as much.
I think definitely, anecdotally, it is on the rise. I have no doubt. I'm really mindful of saying this. I know you can do the editing. I have no doubt that there is probably an element of processed foods, X, Y, and Z, lifestyle. There has to be lifestyle factors that go into that rise. I can't. I don't know, the kind of sciencey side of me can't see otherwise. I could go round the houses trying to work out why me. What did I do wrong? I think, fortunately, I've been I've been able to shut that down quite quickly, probably because whenever I voice something, it's been kind of other people have again been able to rationalize, well, no, that's not you. I think, I don't know. I have no idea why. And I think I can't, even if it was something I've done, I can't beat myself up about it because it's too late. And maybe that's easy for me to say today, and maybe tomorrow I'll find that harder to say. But
When you say something you've done, that's in practically of what your lifestyle, or you're talking about philosophically in terms of God and retribution and all that side?
Either. I think in terms of lifestyle, like I've never smoked. I've never done the kind of quote unquote like obvious things to get cancer, but I don't know, like running up and down, like going for runs and running up and down and breathing in all the car exhausts can't be the best thing for you in the world, but
no, but we've all
but that's the thing, like, and that's not a reason to not go for a run. So that's what I mean when I say like there is a rise in younger people having cancer. There are some things we know about that. There are some things we don't know about that. I've not done anything that is quite clearly taught in schools as a don't do this.
Yes, yeah.
I've not sat on sunbeds. I've not smoked 20 cigarettes a day. I've not smoked any.
And also in general health. I mean, you're someone who, you know,
I was always a
exercise.
sporty exercise. And interestingly, when I did choose to eventually share something publicly, one of the girls that I was at school with and at uni with, who I'd not really spoken to since, she actually got in touch to say that she'd been diagnosed with breast cancer a couple of years ago. She was sports captain at school. So again, like if you were to look at the cohort
profile,
of 120 of us, you're probably looking at, if I'm going to put myself there, the top 10 to 15 sporty people.
Mm-hmm.
So it's clearly not, I don't know, unless exercising too much gets you there. Who knows?
Don't say that.
Well, that one you can edit out, but do you know what I mean? Like, who knows?
Yeah, so you're at the stage where you're dealing with everything sort of quite pragmatically.
Yeah.
You're reaching out to friends,
Yeah.
Which was really good, because what I've seen often when people have either whether it's a diagnosis or let's say or a severe health problem, the tendency is to try and not keep everyone out and not tell anyone. But the stress often of doing that and trying to pretend everything's fine because you don't want to either alarm people, or you don't want to become a headline, or you don't want people to talk about you, that stress of keeping the secrets off isn't like so much worse than just being open, and which you definitely were. You told everyone straight away. So
yeah, and I understand why, because the challenge when you tell people is you then can't control what they say. And fortunately, I didn't have any clangers of, oh my God, are you scared you're going to die? At least in the immediacy that I can remember. But so I do understand why it's almost like a protective mechanism. Like you can control.
Yes, yeah, and you don't. People can say, certain things like that.
Yeah, but I think for me, you can't hide from the truth. So
how did you deal with that thought? Like it must have come into your mind sometimes, like, am I going to manage this? I'm going to live.
Oh, absolutely. I think I mean,
it's hard even saying it now.
I don't know that I did. Like I think I would be misrepresenting what happened to say I thought X, Y, and Z, and then all of a sudden I snapped out of it. Like I cried a lot. I think in probably the days after, as is the nature of my job, I set cover work because I knew but that was something I could do.
Mm-hmm.
So I had said, I'll do this, the first week back I'll do, and then the rest is on everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
I can't really remember, but
well, I mean,
like I was also still recovering from my first surgery, so there was that too, that I guess was playing into things.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think I came back on the Monday, had an appointment on the Tuesday, and then again it's quite like go, go, go. So I don't really know.
So you just sort of, I mean, you can see like a theme where you're just carrying on and trying to do as much day-to-day life as possible, so you don't get stuck into probably the endless thinking.
Yeah, and I think I had an amazing source of support in my friends, in my family. I was talking, but yeah, like I didn't do, I don't know. I cried a lot. I worried a lot. I didn't, really know. We thought I was going to have chemo. So it was like, okay, so what can I do to make sure I don't lose, like, not lose my hair, but like, there's an amazing place that, so like I had a plan in place for what was going to happen for my hair and stuff. So
you made that plan?
Yeah, as in, I don't know, it's almost like because what I didn't want was to, like, I know, like a lot of people recommended Scheitel makers, and I was like, because what I didn't want was I didn't want to not have hair. So it was like, they do this amazing, they specialize in hair loss, and it's all to do with like how you, like, they basically mean that they use if there is any hair and whatever, so that you'd like never, like, you always have hair stuck on. That sounds such a bad explanation. But it just, I didn't want to have to take a wig off every night. So, but yeah, like I had an appointment with them. Right.
So you were sort of preparing for,
like, things like that.
In the end, you didn't have chemo.
No, I didn't have to have chemo. That was a kind of an outcome of the results of the second surgery and the exact scope and extent of the cancer that, like, my particular type. But I definitely I didn't need to do any of it, but I had my eyebrows microbladed. So again, like, that's quite a, like, pragmatic thing that you can do that, Stephen and I went away because the oncologist said we could. So we had a little bit of time away, which was nice. And again, like, I think the time just goes, but that's probably 18 months later, 2 years later, having blocked out the harder times because you don't really want to remember them.
So when you say 18 months, so you got the diagnosis on the 4th of January, and then sort of in terms of timeline. So
I had a couple of appointments with the oncologist or my surgeon. I had my second surgery on the 23rd of Feb.
That was to remove the cancer?
So that was, full hysterectomy. They took out the other ovary. They took out little bits and bobs of organs I didn't even know existed. And that was to remove everything. The surgeon always explained that her job was to get rid of everything to the extent that she could. And then had chemo happened, it would have been just a kind of like final blast. But the type of tumour that I had, they know doesn't particularly respond to chemo. And given the scans had come back to the extent that they can ever say about anyone that there was no cancer, they felt that a different course was appropriate, which meant I didn't have to have chemo, which I guess in some respects was a silver lining. But yeah.
And was that a big, was that the second surgery? Sounds like it was quite brutal in terms of just physically, besides for the emotional part.
Yeah, it was. I think partly it was a big surgery. I was in hospital longer, which possibly in hindsight meant that I was slightly better by the time I got home. So that made it easier for the people that were looking after me. But I think the hardest thing about that recovery was because the kind of plan with no chemo only came out later down the line. At that point, I wasn't recovering to get better. I was recovering to get worse again, or I was recovering as much as I could before then that I was hit with the next wave of chemo. So that, I think, was psychologically the hardest thing.
Yeah. How did you keep going then? Because there's not much positive, not much to look forward to.
I don't really know. And I know that that's probably unhelpful in some respects, but I guess maybe it's helpful to know that, like, I don't really know. There was nothing in particular. Like, I spent time with my friends.
Did you talk about it with them, or by that stage were you just trying to like talk about everyday stuff?
I think probably it's too much of an elephant in the room, and there's an extent to which you can talk about everyday life for enough, and then like it's always going to circle back to that because it's the biggest thing. In the same way that you can catch up with a friend that's 6 weeks out from getting married, you're going to talk about everything else, but you're always going to circle back to the wedding because that's the next big thing, or that's the biggest thing in someone's life. So
yes,
yeah, I think, yeah, I probably just stayed in touch with as much normality as possible, whether that was like having a chat with people that I work with. Like I was rough, like in a little bit of contact with my line manager, just because again, like it was nice to chat to him. I think he wanted to know how I was and stuff. So yeah.
As you were keeping sort of, you were socialized. Were you physically, like, how long did it take you till you felt better and stronger after the surgery?
I think I actually got in a little bit of trouble for overdoing it. So I went to a wedding 5 weeks after surgery, and I was able to go. I went. I think the thing that's hardest, and the thing that I found really hard throughout, is not being able to pinpoint the cause of X feeling. So because the surgery put me in menopause, it's like it was this almost really horrible game of, is it the surgery? Is it the menopause? Is it the cancer? Is it the emotions? Like not knowing what was causing how I was feeling. So I could follow the kind of timeline that I'd been given in terms of, you're not meant to do X for so many weeks, you're not meant to do Y for so many weeks. But I think finding that new normal took far longer than, like, I don't know how long that took, and that's probably still ongoing in many respects.
Was that something they expected, that you would be in menopause following?
Yes, we knew that was gonna happen. But again, that's kind of like, you don't know how long it's gonna last, you don't know how bad it's gonna be, but that was something that I knew was coming.
Like, I'm wondering, like, when it dawned on you, and that not only would you have the surgery, but then the impact on like the future. Like, when did it hit you that it's not just I'm curing a cancer, but all the ramifications? Instantly. Really?
It was almost one of the first things I said to Stephen was, I'm scared I won't be able to give you children. Because we hadn't been together all that long. I wouldn't have blamed him at all if he'd walked away. So I was acutely aware of that from the start. And that's definitely what made it all that much harder, because, as you say, it's not in fixing one problem, you're opening up a whole new can of worms that you never expected was going to be on the cards. And that, yeah, was something that I knew from the beginning. I think as soon as I then met with the surgeons and they explained the extent of the surgery that I was going to have it, there's no two ways about it. When they're taking all of your reproductive organs, it's not a case of a potential impact. It's like, this is final.
Do they say it, or do they know, or do they know that you know?
I can't quite remember. I think I've been because the phrasing that was used, I guess the medical phrasing, was hysterectomy. And I wonder if they could see enough of my reaction to know I knew what they meant by that. I was probably surprised by, in saying that to other people, the fact that perhaps people didn't quite realise the extent of what that surgery entails, but that's no judgment or criticism. But I think they could tell from from what my reaction, my response, my questions, that they knew what I knew, what it entailed. And there was a very brief question about whether one potential option was on the table, but it kind of was pretty fleeting and never really came to anything, which probably was quite comforting in some respects, because again, the bit that was harder was the potential of this might be an option, this could be an option, there's a chance of X, Y, and Z. And I think that then was harder because then that's like me making decisions. I wanted to abdicate all responsibility for any decision making and just, if it has to happen, it has to happen. And the fact that I don't have to worry about the what ifs because I didn't have a decision to make. We said very clearly at the time, like, I have to be alive to be a mum. So
yeah, there's nothing
you can do.
It just seems like, which 28-year-old by that time person is ever prepared to have that conversation that you had with Stephen at the time to say, look, I can't give you.
Yeah.
That's like nothing can prepare one for something like that.
And I mean, it was a baptism of fire for him. If he was a different person, maybe it would have been a very different outcome. And I'm grateful that he's not and it hasn't been. But I think probably, like I say, it's those phrases like, you have to be alive to be a mum. That's very pragmatic. That's very like, okay, so this is what we have to do, X, Y, and Z. When you really stop and think about it, that's when it becomes more overwhelming. When you like, can you ever really take in the scope of that statement? Like my recent blood tests have just been all good, which is amazing and exciting. And I now don't have another set of blood tests until after my birthday, and which will be my 30th. I've been kind of flippantly saying, I never thought I'd be happy to be 30. And again, like actually when you really think about that, there's a lot in that sentence, but perhaps, I don't know. There's been times, and I have had counselling and talked about it and this, that and the other, but it's probably sometimes easier just to be a bit flippant about it all because.
Yeah, so it's because to spend too long delving on it is just going to pull you down. And but are there, let's say, I mean, you're working like with children the whole time.
Yeah.
Are there certain times where you're just reminded of it, or as time goes on, does it just go to a bit more to the back of the mind?
Definitely. I think I found the contrast between my work life and my personal life and my professional life quite difficult because I have been so not public, but candid in my personal life. And that hasn't understandably been possible at work. My colleagues know, but the kids don't know, and that's right that they don't know. For me, for them, for any number of reasons.
Yes, yeah.
But that has been quite challenging at times, if that's because as a geography teacher, I'm teaching population and I'm teaching fertility rates and I'm teaching why is it that a young woman such as myself may or like thinking about the idea that fertility rates are decreasing because of increased education for women and women having careers and delaying having children. And I mean, I'm probably, for the students, an example of that. It's very easy to say, oh, look at me.
Yes, yeah.
X number of years ago, I would have had X number of children, but I've got a career, I'm here teaching you. And obviously that probably, if you really think about it, that's got quite a lot of different weight before and after surgery. Looking at pesticides, which can be really carcinogenic if inhaled and in certain, under a really unique set of circumstances, all of a sudden with year sevens, and then it's a conversation amongst the year sevens as to, does X, Y, and Z cause cancer? Like,
so how do you deal with that? Is it just one of those things you just get good at, just being able to almost like compartmentalize? There's me, private life, and now I'm a teacher, so.
Yeah, but also again,
like I've not. You, like when you.
But I've not. I think because people at work know, and that has meant that when there have been occasions that I have needed support or things have felt a lot, I've been able to go to someone and say, oh, I just did this with year 7, or oh, one of the year 12 said this, and I've not even had to wait till I get home. I can
really? That's amazing that you've got that.
And that's what I would hope to be for someone else, but that's how I've coped.
Yeah, but I think as much as it sounds like you've got an amazing support system, you've also like created that because you've allowed people in and you've reached out and you've asked for the support.
Yeah, and I'm mindful that I've never in doing that never wanted to make anyone feel uncomfortable. I've never, like, I know that it is a lot to kind of give someone that information or share that part of how I'm feeling with someone else. But I think more often than not, I found that in sharing, people share back. Whether that's colleagues who kind of knew that I was off, maybe didn't know why, and then when I explained why I was off, and again, like the extent of the surgery, then explains that, well, actually, they really struggled to conceive, and their child that I've taught is conceived through the support of reproductive health or whatever. They had a real struggle with it, and they kind of had IVF along the way. And I think both myself and Stephen have found that the more that we've shared, the more other people have felt able to share. And in return, hopefully that's helped them, whether that's about something that's completely unrelated. But yeah, I think probably people are more inclined to talk.
It's very interesting because it shows like that people feel comfortable because you're being vulnerable.
Yeah.
You're being open to struggle. And whereas probably, we tend to be like in the world where everyone's putting on that nice persona where everything's perfect. It's very hard to share to people who look like everything's fine and they've got no problems. They wouldn't really relate to us, but you are, by being open with your struggle, people automatically feel, hey, I've got...
Yeah, and maybe I think that's more an extension of who I was and who I am anyway. I don't know that I'd speculate, and you'll know better than I will, that if you have a diagnosis or whatever it is, like, you're more inclined to lean towards, if you tend to be more open, you're probably going to become more open. If you tend to be more withdrawn, you're going to become more withdrawn.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of to cross that, I know it's not a binary, but to cross that divide is probably really hard.
Yeah.
And particularly when everything else is really difficult, to then also do that. But if nothing else, it's being self-aware. I already probably knew how I reacted when things were difficult. And therefore, I can carry it, maybe just that little bit of self-awareness.
Which you probably which you already had before, probably.
Yeah.
Or that you had to dig deep and just...
Yeah, or just, like I say, smaller things, hiccups, hurdles that happen along the course of life, I tended to share.
Mm-hmm.
And my friends tended to share. And like I say, I think some people would sit around the table and listen, and everything is, nothing's off limits.
Yes,
but that's what works for me.
Yeah.
And that's what's helpful for me and my friends, and that's how we work. And that pre-existing relationship and foundation didn't have to be built. It was there and I could turn to it.
Yes. And in that way, that's your personality, your nature.
Yeah, just comes through.
Gave you that extra sort of grounding and support when you needed it the most. You didn't have to start from scratch. You had those existing relationships and people knew you and
some
you were familiar being sharing.
Yeah, some relationships, a bit cringy to say blossomed, but like some relationships did. I think my diagnosis coincided with when the King's diagnosis and everything with I think formal like Princess of Wales. I think it's her formal title. And I found that really difficult because there was a lot of media noise at the time. And a lot of media noise was like how you lose all your friends, how cancer changes everything, how you're never going to think the same way again. And X, Y, and Z. And I found that really difficult because I was like, I quite like my friends. I quite like the position that I've got to in life. I don't really want everything to change overnight. So maybe there was a real conscious effort to try and keep that normality because I didn't want things to change. It worked so hard, like physically, mentally, emotionally, to get to a really good place that I then didn't want everything to change. So maybe there was a part of me that was working hard to not let things change. To
maintain everything. And like now, let's say, as you sitting here and looking back, do you have like any regrets in terms of what you should have done differently, or
no, because ultimately I did the best that I could in the situation that I was in, and I don't know what I could have done differently. Could I have called the NHS a week earlier? Would that have meant that, despite it being a slow-growing tumour, would that have meant that I didn't have to have a hysterectomy? Like, who knows? I don't know. Again, I don't know that going down that rabbit hole is ever going to have a positive outcome.
No.
I think I'd rather look at the situation I'm faced with and make the best of that. So yeah.
And so let's say, like, in terms of the situation and making the best of it, so you're now, you don't have to have a checkup till when's the next checkup?
I have 3 monthly blood tests. I have scans every year. I had to have scans, like there was a slight abnormality in one of the blood tests, so I had scans, and that was obviously a shock and scary at the time because that was not part of the plan. So again, there's like oh my gosh, it's come back, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. So yeah, but for the most part, I get a 3-month reprieve. I have the test, I have the scans, and then we go again in 3 months. So in the meantime, I can crack on doing what I was doing before, working, enjoying spending time with my family and friends, going on holiday. I think that's what I said at the beginning. And yeah.
And does it sort of, as you get closer to the next scan or the next, does that sort of bring you back?
Yeah, definitely.
Thinking about it and worrying about it.
Definitely. And there's parts of me that even just the small things, we're going to Australia, and it's so silly. We've paid for the flights, we've paid for the accommodation, this, that, and the other. We needed a visa, and a visa is a free 5-minute application form. But I didn't want to do that until after we'd had the most recent results. So I had those results, they were all good, and it's like, I can go to Australia, right. Which is so silly because we'd already, like...
But it sounds, I mean, you might say it's silly, but also just gives one an idea of, like, what's going through your mind. Like, yeah. It's hard to start thinking about Australia and having a fun time and doing something. Let's first...
Because it could all get taken away.
Yeah. But that's shocking that really, I think, just hearing that, even though you've had everything, you still, every so often have to keep thinking those thoughts, like, is there going to be an Australia? Is there going to be, the next thing?
Yeah, and I think that's probably, like, it hasn't stopped me booking that holiday. It hasn't stopped me committing to various things, I think. But definitely in the run-up, they use, like, the phrase is scanxiety, and whether that's a helpful phrase or otherwise, but definitely you get nervous. I think it would be weird not to.
Yes, and hopefully as time goes on and each scan comes back, please God, like, clear, then you start feeling a bit more confident about everything. But you've done, like, some amazing things since. You've run the London Marathon.
I did.
Which is unbelievable.
Yeah.
How did you get to that? What made you do it?
I ran it for Kai, who looked after me. So I really I've always wanted to do it. and it's so difficult to get a place. I've applied various times and always been rejected. And I wanted to, if I was going to run it for a charity, I wanted to run it for one that really meant something to me. And they did such a good job of looking after me. I wanted a challenge. I wanted, I don't know. I wanted to run the London Marathon before I had cancer. I wanted to run it after I had cancer, so I did it. And yeah, maybe I could read into things more than that, but I probably was just that simple.
Yeah.
Like, I found it really difficult. The training was relentless. Was it harder based just, it's always going to be relentless, but was it massively.
harder based on the physical?
Massively. The physical recovery, the fatigue that was horrendous, the having to relearn my body, having to retrust my body.
Wow.
I used to, whenever I was swimming, whatever sport I was doing, like if there was a niggle, I'd be like, oh, it's fine, I'll move on. All of a sudden, I had a niggle, and then it turned out to be cancer. So then trying to go for a run and having a niggle, it's like,
wow.
Is this something?
Yes, yeah.
So like having to readjust my expectations of myself. But then, yeah, like, I don't know.
Was it also like
I didn't run it as quick as I might have anticipated, but I had cancer, so no one can judge me for my time.
Well, you know what? I think if anyone gets across the line, even if you walk, I think it's an amazing achievement. Was it also a way of you showing that, don't count me out. I can do this, and I'm not going to let anything stop me?
Maybe. I think maybe that's more like, on reflection, something I can be really proud of. But at the time, like I say, it wasn't. Had I not been diagnosed with cancer in 2024, if you'd been talking to me in 2022, it wasn't out of the question that I was going to run the 25 marathon. Obviously, you need a lot of moving parts to fall into place.
Yes, yeah.
To make that a reality. But it wasn't like it was completely out the realms of possibility. So I think in that sense, why can't I run the marathon? Like, I know on paper I have to have my surgeon's approval, and there's certain things that are more difficult, and a lot of the nutrition was really difficult because I couldn't have certain things, and the settling down after surgery took a lot longer than probably I'd hoped. But yeah, like, if I could do it before, why can't I do it after?
Yes, yeah. Well, it's amazing. I mean, you see it as just, well, you're going to only do it, but I think if you would ask anyone, to run the London Marathon after such an ordeal, even to have the idea of it, never mind all the training and actually doing it. Let's say in terms of you've spoken to in the Chai video, you're on here now. Do you see that as, like, many people wouldn't do and speak about it in the way you are? Why are you doing it? Besides the fact that you're coming from Shabbos lunch and
maybe it's maybe it's the teacher in me, the educator. I think, unfortunately, I will not be the last 27-year-old that is diagnosed with ovarian cancer or any cancer. I will not be, for whatever reason, the last 27-year-old that's all of a sudden told, you won't be able to have kids. And I guess going back to what I said at the beginning, if for the next person that is, I can be a reference point of, oh, she had it and she was okay. Like, yeah, there can be another, like, I didn't know anyone my age when I was diagnosed at all. I didn't have any reference points other than the people that I'd heard of that had died. Chai are amazing and they've done so much brilliant stuff, but I first said to them, like, when I opened that brochure, for whatever reason, the page that I opened it on, the youngest person was still 10 years older than me. And I kind of said, well, I would love to be, for the next person that has to open that brochure, I would love to be that actually they open it and there's someone younger than them, or there's someone that's the same age.
Yes, yeah.
So I don't want to have cancer. I didn't choose to have it, but if it's going to have to happen, might as well help another person out. Because, yeah, I don't think there's any value in gatekeeping my experience, because that's, I don't know.
You're like finding the purpose from all the pain.
Yeah, or just, like I say, hopefully normalizing things in a way that, like, don't get me wrong, it can be, or a cancer diagnosis is, I don't want to say life-changing, but the reality is it is. But equally, it can be life-changing. It doesn't have to be like life-defining.
Yes, yeah.
It doesn't have, like, there is more to you, there is more to me, there is more to life than that diagnosis. And in the same way that, yeah, the last 2 years, there's been a lot of cancer talk, but there's also been some amazing things. There's been things to celebrate. There's been kind of opportunities at work, opportunities with friends. I've been to places in the world that I've not been to before. So, yeah, of course, I'm going to look back on my late 20s and I don't think I'm ever going to forget I had cancer, but it doesn't have to be everything.
Yes, yeah. Well, I mean, I think that has come through, like, throughout the whole episode, that I think throughout everything, and even sort of before we started this, I had in my mind that, you know, you had what you had to have, like the surgeries, and then the news of you know, how of fertility.
Yeah.
But actually, you can see there's a lot more. There's every scan. There's the niggles that one's not over it. One can't just suddenly say, right, okay, we move on, because there's still things that are holding you back. But I can see that you are absolutely, and have been, but determined that you are not going to allow it to, you know, to define you and to pull you back from what you want to achieve.
Yeah. And I think that's what I said when, like, right at the beginning, when I messaged people, I was like, it's not the plan, but it's not going to stop me. And that's not to say for people where there isn't as happy an outcome, that it's a failure, or they've lost their battle or anything. It's to say that I played the hand I was dealt and I've done my best, and that's all that anyone can really do. And I think you can't beat yourself up for things that are out of your control. I'm more often than not, I'm beating myself up for getting upset about something. I'm not beating myself up for the thing that's happened.
Yes, yeah. So would that be like your message to other people that might be watching this and might have their own diagnosis or another sort of big struggle that they're coping with? What would be your message to them?
I don't know. There is no right or wrong way to do anything. There's no right or wrong way to respond to anything. All you can do is your best. And like, that's all you can do. And you'll be surprised as to how many other people have been through similar things. And it's scary to kind of be the first person to be brave, but yeah, it's like, I don't know. I'm mindful of telling people who tend to be more withdrawn, you have to tell everyone, because that, again, like, that's me telling people how I dealt with the situation. And that may not be what works for them, but ultimately, you can only do your best, and you can't beat yourself up for making decisions in a situation that was never in your control, that you were never expecting to be in, and doing your best. Because, yeah.
Are there any future nice plans that we should know about?
Not that I know of. No, we're going on holiday, which will be lovely. Getting some winter sun. Turning 30, which is a cause for celebration. And yeah.
And carrying on the teaching and
Yes.
inspiring.
Pardon?
Carry on the teaching and inspiring.
If that's what I do, then that's brilliant. But
Well, all I can say is from this episode, there's no doubt about it. I think you inspire in the way that you aren't there to try and inspire. You're someone who has, gone through an unbelievable challenge.
yeah,
And you've tackled it so stoically, and it's inspiring just because in your mind you think I've just done what I've had to do, but actually, for anyone listening, they'll think, well, you've shown such strength, and you've really brought out some unbelievable courage from reaching out for all the support, from deciding that you're just going to get on with it, to making sure that it's not going to define you. And almost then providing hope for people that might end up having the same diagnosis as you.
I mean, like I say, it's not been
you're
without
very humble.
It's not been without the tears, but even with all those tears, like, they keep coming and they keep coming, but eventually they'll stop and start again.
Well, one thing's for sure with you, you'll make sure they stop.
Yeah.
Zoe, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for coming on to Between the Lines. We really, really appreciate it. And
course.
we look forward to hearing all the fun things that are going to happen
Yes.
in the year of 30.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Amazing. Cool.